Christmas week, New Year's week. We all know that schools just stop. They close, everybody goes on vacation, everybody is off. Therefore, you have to spend that time mostly somewhere else, and that somewhere else is home. Well, what I suspected, based off what I recall hearing during the pandemic, happened again a couple days ago. And it was, you guys know how it had been announced that parts of the South were going to see some snowstorms or whatever. Well, even though none of that included our area in the slightest, there was already one specific mother freaking out over the possibility of there being some snow, therefore extending how much longer her kid stays at home. And the way she said it was, my kid is excited about there being snow, possibly. I really hope not, because they have been out of school for a while. She also said, I'm ready to go back to normal and to go back to my routine. Judging superficially, she drove this giant ass SUV. It looked like one of those luxury SUVs, which, as I was strolling down the parking lot, I could see that she could not even handle it. I mean, first of all, that vehicle is way longer than the designated parking spot is. There was a curb and a car next to her spot. She simply failed at performing that maneuver because her turn was too narrow. When you operate a spaceship like that, you have to imagine that you're driving one of those 18-wheelers. You ever see them, how they have to like turn left to open up themselves and then make their right turn so that they don't hit the curb and tip over and shit? Well, at that point, a ginormous SUV like what you gotta maneuver it in that manner. You have to perform wide turns. But no, you can't do that, or you can't reason to do that. So ultimately, she parked all diagonal, like most of her body was out of the spot. And because she was diagonal, traffic that was coming behind her, that's the direction traffic flows from, had to pretty much wave around her. And because this is a ginormous SUV, it will provoke a blind spot on anybody who's coming because she is blocking their right lane. Therefore, if they have to wave around her, they cannot see incoming traffic. So as you can imagine, there was a near miss, and I said, I'm not going to look because I don't want to have to serve as a witness to any of this, because this shit is not new. It's not new at all. But just because it isn't new doesn't mean I want to participate on it. I remember commenting that I don't understand the people who place orders for you to pick up, which should be you pick up and go. You don't even have to step out your vehicle, but somehow you get to the store, you pick up your order, and somehow you continue shopping. You start a new order with a bloody shopping cart. And again, we know it's you because it's your name on the order. It's going to you. You're not dropping this off for somebody else. It's not like your mom said, oh, I'm going to place an online order for you to pick up for me and bring it to me, and it'll have a different name. Nothing like that. This is your personal shopping, and to your personal shopping, you're still adding shit. And when I think about it, I think this time around, that fear over the storm that we were going to have that never came, then makes people overreact down here in the South. And another thing that's been happening is temperatures have been lower than average. So people are always freaking out over having to get iced in or something like that. And I'm like, well, you do realize that all this frozen pizza you're buying, the first thing to go is going to be power, right? But I just think it's insane that this lady, for instance, has the mentality of, I don't know what to do with my kid for prolonged periods of time, and I need for schools to open back up because I'm ready for the routine. This is inconveniencing me. Even though, if I remember correctly, I want to say she's one of those parents who stays at home. Because, I mean, that is a family that has a shit ton of money. And usually, from what I have observed and heard, most of the people who shop, who come from those families, they don't have jobs. They just stay at home. And some of those also are backed up by wealth already. So that means they can stay home and they don't have to worry about any of that. You don't want to do your own shopping. You don't want to be personally involved with it. You don't want to be personally involved with watching over your kid. And at that point, I just wonder, what is it about your detachment from those little things that is appealing to you? Because it's not that the task is ceasing to exist. It's a task that you could take over. You are passing along to somebody else. And I am trying to understand two things. What leads to that? Like, what is it that happened to where that became the norm? And why is it that that's just the way of things, that anytime you're confronted with the possibility of having to take over that, you freak out? And if I had to guess, it's because you ever have to do something new, something different at your job, and because you don't have experience doing it, your job is kind of sloppy because you're trying to like get the hang of it, whatever. I'm guessing these are people unwilling to get the hang of taking care of their kid. And the reason I mentioned the pandemic is because during the pandemic, when schools closed and eventually went remote, people were freaking out over how they didn't know what to do with their kid, or they didn't know how to handle their kid for an entire day. Basically, they didn't know who their kid was, like personality wise. And that's why I keep saying living at home, existing at home, is something that needs to be worked on. I think I have excess time at home, but at least I know what home is, what existing at home is. But I find that some people are always finding ways to be busy, or being away from home, or just being at work. And I look at that as an avoidant kind of relationship, an avoidant kind of living. You're avoiding your kid, and then suddenly when you have no choice but to have your kid, you can't handle it because you can't just pass it along. Additionally, your detachment from actual home management, such as actually having to clean this place up if you are gone for too long and you don't dedicate the time it actually takes, and you instead want to hire someone to do the cleaning work for you. Again, detachment, avoiding. During the pandemic, you absolutely could not get rid of your kid, like send them elsewhere, or even send them to an alternative place for people to watch them, because all of that was closed. And again, I just want to understand where that attitude comes from. Like, why is it that as an adult with responsibilities, I guess you need a ton of me time? And I guess for me, it's hard to understand because I'm not a parent. And one of the reasons why I'm not a parent is because I know that the first thing to go is going to have to be my me time. Because of that, I know that if my me time is always going to be priority, then I cannot possibly engage in an activity that's going to require me to sacrifice my me time. So why is it that somebody else, who's potentially just like me, you're not willing to give up your me time, then you are doing things that result in you having to sacrifice your me time, but you're not willing to invest that way. You're not willing to give up your me time, but you still have the very thing, the kid, that forces you to sacrifice me time. Does that make sense? But because you are not sacrificing your me time, the kid is the one suffering the consequences of your parental inadequacy. To me, it doesn't. I'm trying to put that into words because for me, it's very hard. But I just think that it's sad that the kid ultimately doesn't witness perhaps their parents talking like this. Hopefully not. Hopefully this is not the kind of mom who has like a best friend girly that they call when they're at home and they just gossip away And of course, talking about the kids is inevitable, and the kid may witness this conversation. But imagine the kid witnessing their mom expressing themselves like they're an inconvenience for her because she doesn't have a way to send them away in the daytime. And she has to suck it up and be with them in the daytime. That's the point. So, anyways, you guys, that's it from me. I thought I would share that because I find it weird. And I think that because of that detachment, that's why we're encountering the behavioral problems that we're seeing now, especially people's denial. You hear me talk a lot about the different ways that people behave in denial, like when their card declines, when their car breaks down, when their comments that have consequences, they refuse to accept what the consequences are, those little things. Then doing this to a kid, thinking about a kid in that manner until they grow up old enough to become useful to you is very damaging. If I'm observing that right now in the present, years down the line, how's that gonna manifest? I'm just saying, it's better to be nicer with kids and lead them in a healthy way as they're growing rather than trying to repair a broken adult. I'm just saying. Well, there you guys have it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts on this one if you knew the point that I was trying to make, because I sincerely didn't know how to express it. And I'll see you next time.